What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Magic Game Center. I'm Magic Official. I haven't made a video in a while. Again, school screwed me up my schedule. Right now I'm at school. Bright, sunny day. And I'm free, so I get to actually do a video. So today I'm going to be talking about Pokemon. Pokemon X, Pokemon Y. Which one is the one you should get if you haven't gotten it already? If you have gotten one of the games, you don't really need this video. This is just for somebody who hasn't gotten it yet, who's thinking of getting it, and it's the best-selling game out right now, so yeah, there's been some time since its release, so it's easy to evaluate which one out of which is the one to get. And this time I'm going to be joined by this little lady Pokemon Master. Aren't you going to introduce yourself?
I think they already know who I am.
How would they already know who you are?
Does the name Shadowcat sound familiar?
Okay, that's Shadowcat, and she's going to be helping us talk about Pokemon. Now, here we have both games. Shadowcat owns Pokemon Y. I own Pokemon X. And we're going to talk about which one is better in the sense of, all right, you barely got yourself a 3DS. Which game do you want to get? So, let's talk about the differences in each. Now, both games are exactly the same. The story is the same no matter which game you get. So if you get Pokemon X, Pokemon Y, you're going to have the same gym leaders, you're going to have the same battles, the same storyline. That's exactly the same. The only difference between the two is the Pokemon. If you're new to Pokemon, then there's some Pokemon in X, which I'm representing with my blue 3DS, that aren't in Y. And there's some Pokemon in Y that aren't in X.
And of course the Legendaries. If you choose X,
the Legendaries.
If you choose X, you'll get the wonderful deer, Xerneas, and if you choose Y, like I did, you get the badass Yveltal.
Yep. Okay. So, depending on which one, most of the time when someone picks, okay, which Pokemon game I'm gonna get, usually it's based on color. So, like Diamond and Pearl, do you like blue or pink? Okay, I like blue better. Go with Diamond. Or ever since Generation 1, red or blue? I like red better, I get red. I like blue better, I get blue. X and Y, kind of the same thing. X is the blue Pokemon cover. Y is the red one. And Yveltal comes as the legendary in Y. And in Pokemon X, Xerneas is the legendary. And as she said, Xerneas is a deer. So I called mine Megaloceros because after Megaloceros Gigantus. But anyways, the difference between the legendaries, so what? They're two different Pokemon. But let's first talk about Yveltal, Pokemon Y. So Yveltal is this giant, awesome-looking bird that brings destruction. And he's a dark type.
Dark and flying.
Dark and flying type. So if someone has a ghost-type Pokemon or someone has a psychic, like my Mewtwo's my favorite Pokemon, Yveltal can crush it in terms of type effectiveness. And it has some really strong moves like Oblivion Wing, which is a flying type move that
absorbs HP.
Does exactly that. Now let's talk about Pokemon X, Xerneas. Xerneas isn't nearly as badass as Yveltal. Yveltal looks freaking awesome.
But I have to admit, Xerneas is pretty.
But Xerneas is a beautiful Pokemon. I'm not saying it's ugly, it's just not badass. It's beautiful. It's got rainbow horns, and it's a giant deer. It's majestic. It looks like a majestic animal. However, in terms of type advantages over Pokemon Y or X, Xerneas is a fairy type, which is a new type introduced in Pokemon X and Y, which is super effective against ghosts and against dark types. So, Yveltal is pretty weak compared to Xerneas. I'm not saying Pokemon X is worse than Y. Don't get all defensive, but Yveltal is weak in terms of pure type against Xerneas. Also, another difference between the two is Mega Evolutions. Now, this is a new concept introduced in Pokemon X and Y, that some Pokemon that before could only evolve up to a third stage can now go to a fourth, or anything that couldn't evolve past its final stage now has an evolution that's only done in battle. So, most Pokemon are going to be exactly the same, no matter which game you get. So, Gardevoir, if you Mega Evolve Gardevoir in Pokemon X or Pokemon Y, it's going to be the exact same one. Mega Gardevoir is the same in X and Y. Mega Gengar is the same in X and Y. But there are a few that are different. For example, in Pokemon X and Y, Mega Charizard is different depending on which game you get. Now, in Pokemon X is the one that everybody talks about in terms of Charizard. Everybody thinks, that I've seen at least in forums and stuff, prefers Mega Charizard X over Mega Charizard Y. Reason why is because he looks cooler.
It's basically a black dragon.
Yeah, he turns into a black dragon without having to be shiny. Before, Black Charizard was only the shiny Charizard. Now he turns into a black dragon type. Charizard was never a dragon type, even though he looked like a dragon. Now he's a dragon type. So, he's no longer fire and flying. He changes into fire and dragon. Pretty cool. None of his abilities really change. His stats change. But his type effectiveness is different because now he's dragon. He's more resistant to more stuff. In Pokemon Y, Charizard doesn't change type. He stays as fire and flying. He doesn't change color either. He just basically grows horns and his wings are really ripped up. And I think that looks awesome. And in my opinion, I prefer Charizard Y over X. Reason why is because of Charizard's drought. If you've had a Ninetales in any of the older games that had drought, you know how awesome drought can be because it increases the effectiveness significantly of fire type moves because the sunlight turns harsh. But not only that, if you train it well, it can kick Mega Charizard X's ass because not only can it learn dragon type moves, which now Mega Charizard X would be weak against, but if you teach it Solar Beam, Charizard's Drought makes Solar Beam a grass type move into a one-turn move. Usually it's a two-turn move. It turns it into a one-turn move. So if somebody brings out a Blastoise or a Samurott that's a water type that's super effective against Charizard, if you have Mega Charizard Y and you use Solar Beam, you knock that out in basically one hit. You're not talking at all.
But I'm agreeing though.
Alright. Anybody else? Now let's talk about another one that's different, Mewtwo. Mewtwo is different depending on which game you get. So, Mega Mewtwo Y stays as a Psychic. And it looks, everybody when it leaked, everybody thought it was Mew 3. Because it looks like a Mew 3. It looks like it could be called Mew 3. It basically looks more like a mix between Mewtwo and Mew. It has like the tail growing out of its head and it looks really awesome. It stays as a Psychic. And Mega Mewtwo Y and Mega Mewtwo X have the highest stats of any Pokemon. Out of all 718, even Arceus. They top in the Mega forms. And Mega Mewtwo Y is the one everybody talks about. Because of how it looks, everybody thought it was Mew 3, and everybody thinks Mega Mewtwo Y is the cooler one. But this time it's inverted. This time I think Mega Mewtwo X is better. Even though Mega Mewtwo X doesn't look nearly as awesome. He looks basically like Lucario if Lucario was white and purple.
It turns into a fighting type too.
But it turns into a fighting type. That's the cool thing. So, those ghost type moves that were super effective against Mewtwo suddenly aren't as effective as they were.
That's true, huh?
And that could be a really big advantage in battle.
So now its weakness would be flying.
Now its weakness is flying instead of ghost. Ghost doesn't affect it as much anymore. So that's a really big bonus. And fighting type moves, of course, get increased. So if your Mewtwo knows Aura Sphere, since he's a fighting type now, it would increase a lot. It would increase pretty significantly. So, other than that, that's pretty much it that covers the differences between the two. Another thing, don't be limited just because of what I'm saying. If you're debating which one to get, oh, I want Yveltal, he looks more badass, but I also want to have a Xerneas. Well, you can still get Xerneas in Pokemon Y, and you can get Yveltal in Pokemon X. Because now there's this thing called the GTS, the Global Trading System, that's been around since Diamond and Pearl, where you can search for Pokemon, and people will trade it for whatever. They put up the Pokemon that they're trading. I'm trading an Yveltal for blank. And if you have that blank, then you can get it in your game. You can trade any Pokemon, except for special events, which is kind of lame because a lot of people ask for like, okay, I have a Xerneas and I want to trade it for a Mew. But you can't trade a Mew on the GTS, which is kind of lame. You can't trade event Pokemon on there or special shinies, but, well, that's pretty much it. So, which one to get, that all depends. Again, it all depends on what you're going to want more. Do you like red more or blue more? If you like blue more, most likely you're going to go for X, even if, no matter what. If you like red more, you'll probably go for Y, even despite everything else. Do you like having the more badass looking legendary, Yveltal? Or do you like having the, not necessarily stronger, but the type advantage of Xerneas? Now, just so you guys know, Pokemon Y is actually the one that sells more.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually selling, I've seen so many more people with Pokemon Y. So if you have X, you have an advantage over all of them because of the fairy type. But
Yveltal's still badass.
okay, but anyways, he is. He's awesome. Or is Charizard important to you? If Charizard isn't this Kanto starter you're gonna pick, because in the game you get to choose one of the 3 Kanto starters. You get to choose either Bulbasaur, you get to choose Blastoise, or you get to choose Charmander. And each of them is gonna come with a
Squirtle.
Right, Squirtle. And each of them is gonna come for with a Mega Stone. So if you pick Bulbasaur, it's gonna come with a Venusaur Mega Stone. If you pick Blastoise, Squirtle, it's going to come with a Blastoise Mega Stone. If you pick Charmander, it's going to come with either Mega Charizard X, Mega Charizard Y, and you use them once they become Charizard or Blastoise or Venusaur. But if Charizard doesn't matter to you, then either one is fine, because Blastoise and Venusaur's Mega Forms are the same in both games. But Charizard, that is the most popular Kanto starter. So if that matters to you, then you might want to choose, do you want the Dragon type? Do you want the Fire and Flying, but that can do Solar Beam in one hit? And if Mewtwo's important to you, Mewtwo's my favorite Pokemon of all of them, then do you want him to stay as Psychic and have his stats go up, or do you want him to be Fighting and Psychic? It all depends. So let us know what you think in the comments down below. And I'm also going to have a video right now. It should be in the link. I'm going to make it right now, actually, so I don't lose time later. But it's going to be talking about a few tips on what to do if you barely got the game and you're barely starting, what to do in like the first 10 minutes of the story. A few tips of how to start and help you out throughout your story, I guess. So that link will be down in the description below.
Oh, and I have one more thing to say. I'm sure you all know about the 3 legendary birds of Kanto, right? Articuno, Zapdos, and
Well, that's going to
Moltres.
be in the next video, because that's how to start the game. Alright, well, this has been Magic Official. Thanks for watching. And this is Shadowcat. Her YouTube will be in the description. And please subscribe. Bye-bye. Peace.